Welcome to chapter 14, the book of 2 Samuel. The last chapter we saw where Absalom killed his half-brother and fled from the king. And it continues now with that story. Pretty much the most of the rest of the book, 2 Samuel, except the end with David's death. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, Joab was the major general for David that led all of his battles. So Joab knew that the heart of the king was towards Absalom, his son. And Joab sent to Tekoa and took from there a wise woman and said to her, and this is what he said to her to do, basically. It was a scheme that he had to get Absalom back. You mourn indeed, and put on mournful garments, and do not anoint yourself with oil, and be as a woman mourning for many days for one having died. And you shall come to the king, and you shall speak to him according to this thing, of what he's saying. And Joab put the words into her mouth. And the Tekoahite woman entered to the king, who was sort of a judge, listened to people, and they came there with their problems and so forth. Maybe Joab got her in the front of the line to get this scheme across. So she fell upon her face to the ground and did obeisance. And the reason I have that highlighted in yellow is because proskenevo, the verb, means to do obeisance, upon the face, upon the ground. This is what it is. Now, the King James translators translated this into worship. And now, today, worship, it means to play guitars and sing and all, is praise. But whenever you see worship in at least the King James, now I don't know what other translations did because I don't read them, but realize that it's not anything to do with music or singing. It has to do with a person putting their face upon the ground. So this is what she did, and I use the word obeisance. Could be veneration, I suppose. Veneration to me more towards a deity. And she said, "Deliver me, O king." The reason I highlighted that is deliver, because the King James used the word save. Well, you can see him. He's not going to save her, far as and he's going to deliver her from a problem. And the king said to her, "Well, what is it to you? What is it?" And she said, "Well, by all means, I am a widow woman, and my husband died." Now she's making this all up. This is what Joab's telling her to say. "And indeed, to your bondwoman are 2 sons, and they both quarreled in the field, and there was not one for rescuing between them. And the one hit his one brother and killed him. And behold, the entire family rose up against your bondwoman, or me, and said, 'Give over the one hitting his brother, and we shall kill him on account of the life of his brother whom he killed, and we shall take away the heir.'" They're not saying that, but basically that is what she's saying. By doing that, they're taking away the heir of the woman, the family. "And so they shall extinguish my spark of coal being left to me, so as to not establish to my husband a vestige and name upon the face of the earth." And this was a big thing to the Jews, to leave behind a vestige, somebody to be an heir. And the king said, so basically what she was saying is that she's making up this, they're having her make up the story of these 2 sons. One killed the other, so now they want to kill the other one, so she's not going to have anybody left. And the king said to the woman, "Well, go to your house, being in health." Igienusa. I highlighted that because the first part of this, igie, is hygiene. It comes from this word. "And I will take charge concerning you." sort of putting her off a little bit. I'll do it, okay. And the Tekoite woman said to the king, O my master, O king, upon me be the iniquity, and upon the house of my father, and the king and his throne be innocent. She's begging him to do something more. Basically, this is the way I see it. In his response, the king said, well, the one speaking to you a word, lead him to me, and in no way shall anyone proceed yet to touch you. So bring the man here. And said the woman, well, let now the king indeed remember the Lord your God. For she's bringing in the spiritual end part of it. Don't forget about God in not multiplying a relative for blood, utterly destroying, that in no way they should take away my son. Well, she's saying, don't forget there's a relative for blood. It's legal for him to come after my son to take his life. And he says, David, as the Lord lives, there shall not fall of the hair of your son upon the ground. So no, that's not going to happen. Now, this is all make-believe because the woman's making this up. But David doesn't know this, of course. And the woman said, well, let your bondwoman speak indeed to my master, the king, a thing. And he said, well, speak. And the woman said, why have you imputed thus upon the people of God? Yes, from the king speaking this word, it is a trespass for the king to not return the one being thrust away by him, by basically sort of putting to death his son Absalom for killing his brother. And now, a lot of Hebrewisms in here and cultural mores and so forth that we maybe don't understand completely why all this, how this comes about and the mentality of the people. But she continues, for to death we shall die, and are as the water being discharged upon the earth, not being gathered together, that God shall not take the life of Absalom. Basically, they don't want him as dead. Yet he himself devises a device to not thrust away from him the one being thrust away. And now, for which I came to speak to my master the king, this word, for the people see me, and your bondwoman will say, she's still making this up, let your bondwoman speak indeed. So she's saying the people are going to say to me, they're going to, she's kind of continuing this ruse, and she's saying the people are going to say, let your bondwoman speak indeed to my master the king, if by any means the king shall do the matter of his maidservant. Basically, the whole thing is about bringing Absalom back. For the king shall hear to rescue his bondwoman from out of the hand of the man seeking to take me away and my son from the inheritance of God. So it's basically the same thing. Absalom's being taken away from the inheritance. And said your bondwoman, let be indeed the word of my master the king for an accepted sacrifice. So now she's buttering him up, saying these things, that the words, whatever you say, are right. For as a messenger of God, thus is my master the king, to hear the good and the bad. And the Lord your God will be with you. And continues stroking him, giving him, patting him on the back. And the king answered and said to the woman, you should not indeed hide from me the matter whichever I shall ask you. So I'm going to ask you something. I want you to tell me the truth. And the woman said, well, let indeed my master the king speak. And the king said, is not the hand of Joab in all this with you? And the woman answered and said to the king, as your soul lives, O my master, O king, since there is no turning to the right or to the left from out of all which my master the king spoke, for your bondman Joab himself gave charge to me, and he put all these words in the mouth of your bondwoman, so as for the face of this matter to come about. Thus Joab did, your bondman did this thing. And my master the king is wise as the wisdom of a messenger of God to know all the things in the land. So you figured it out. And the king said to Joab, so now that was the end of the woman, he brings in Joab. He says to Joab, well, behold, indeed, I do to you according to this your word. Go return the young man Absalom. And Joab fell upon his face upon the ground and did obeisance and blessed the king. Evlogi say, eulogy comes from that. And Joab said, today your bondman, I know that he found favor in your eyes, O my master, O king, for my master the king did the matter for his bondman. And Joab rose up and went to Geshur. We have that map in the last chapter, north, up by the Golan Heights, and led Absalom down into Jerusalem. And the king said, well, let him return to his house, but let him not see my face. And Absalom returned to his house, but the face of the king he did not see. And there was not a man as Absalom in all Israel, as exceedingly praiseworthy. Must have been quite a man. From the sole of his foot unto the top of his head, there was not a blemish on him. And in his shearing of his head, and it took place at the end of days, unto days that he sheared it, for it became burdensome upon him, and thus was shearing it, he set aside the hair of his head, 200 shekels of the royal scale weight. So apparently he had a lot of hair. And there was born to Absalom 3 sons and 1 daughter. Thegatir, in transliteration, trees. And her name was Thamar, the same as his sister. So she's named after her aunt. And she was an exceedingly goodly woman, as her mother, which makes sense. And Absalom stayed in Jerusalem 2 years of days. So now 2 years goes by, and the face of the king he did not see. And Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king. So he sends to him, come here, and I want to tell you what to do. But he, Joab, did not want to come to him. And he, Absalom, sent again of a second time to him, and he, Joab, did not want to come. He doesn't want to get involved in this family's feud. So what does Absalom do? He said to his bondman, you know the portion in the field of Moab being next to mine? And to him is barley there? Go and burn it by fire. And the bondman of Absalom burned by fire the portion of the field of Joab. Well, this gets Joab's attention, of course. And Joab rose up and came to Absalom to the house and said to him, well, why did your bondman set on fire my field with fire? And Absalom said to Joab, well, behold, I sent to you, saying, come here, and I will send you to the king, saying, why did I come from out of Geshur? For it was good for me to be there. And now I shall see indeed the face of the king. And if there is iniquity in me, then I shall be killed. So Joab went to the king and reported to him. And he called Absalom, that is David, and Absalom entered to the king and did obeisance to him, and fell upon his face upon the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. Sounds like everything went well. Well, it didn't. We find out that Absalom is a treacherous person. In chapter 15, you'll find out about that. Continue joining us in these Through the Bible video seminars. Till then, God bless.